Hi, Westside. Good to see you today. We are in our last week of our series called In This Together, where we're talking about what it means to be the community of God, connected together. And Pastor Ben yesterday talked about us being an engaged community. And today's passage we're going to be looking at is from Luke chapter 10. It's a super familiar passage if you've been around the church for a while. It's the story of the Good Samaritan. And I'm not going to read all of it today. I hope that you will take some time after this video to read the entire passage. It's Luke chapter 10, verses 25 through 37. And I'm just going to read a few verses here to launch into our discussion today. It says that an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus, saying, "Teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life?" It's a really big question. I mean, think about this. You're asking a rabbi, someone who you feel is connected to God in a special way, asking him, "How do I spend eternity with God?" It's the question that everyone, every generation, and every culture ponders and wonders about is how do I continue on after this life with my Creator? And then Jesus says, "Well, what is written in the law, and how do you read it?" And the man answered, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself." And Jesus said, "You've answered correctly. Do this, and you will live." Pretty simple, right? I mean, all the things that Jesus could extrapolate on in terms of what is required in order to spend eternity with your Creator, Jesus confirms what this man already believes, is that love God with all your heart, all your soul, mind, and strength, is love him with all of who you are, and love your neighbor as yourself. But then it says, interestingly, in verse 29, but wanting to justify himself, he asked Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" It's an interesting word there that this guy uses when he says to justify himself. It's like, I'm not able to do what you just told me. So what can I do in order to spend eternal life with my Creator? So I know my limitations. I can't love my neighbor as myself. So help me out. Who is my neighbor actually? I mean, give me like an easy answer. And Jesus tells this story then of the Good Samaritan who helped this man who had been beaten and robbed, and the religious people walked by, the Jewish people walked by, and then this Samaritan who the crowd that Jesus is talking to are kind of like the enemy. They're not of one heart and mind for sure, right? And so, but Jesus uses him as the protagonist in the story who helps the man get the help he needed. And I love Keith Jenkins, pastor friend of ours from Portland, said a couple of years ago when he kind of talked about this passage. He said, "Your neighbor is anyone who needs something that you have," and that's our neighbor. People that are around us that have needs that we can actually help fill. It's an interesting way of looking at it. And sometimes I think what happens in the United States in particular, because of our addiction to the media, is that we will think about our neighbor in macro terminology, meaning we'll think about the things that need to be fixed nationally. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I actually think there's a lot of systemic things that we need to look at and take on as a nation. But when we think about the teachings of Jesus, so often he keeps everything pretty micro. He talks about how we care for our enemy. And that's not some distant person, our neighbor. That's not some distant person. It's people right here that live alongside of us, that we go to work with, that we go to school with, that we have dinner with, that we spend holidays with, that we go to church with, that we we meet at the dog park. That's kind of my life now with my new little puppy, right? And so we meet these people, and these people is our neighbor. And Jesus is saying to always keep an eye out for the micro needs, the granular, the in the street right outside your house needs that are around us. And you might be wondering, well, what does this have to do with community? Because this sounds like a lot more like outreach. Like I'm supposed to extend myself outside of my community. And it connects because the kind of community that Jesus describes throughout his teaching is an inclusive community. It's a community that welcomes in the stranger, the foreigner, the Samaritan, the hurting, the abused, the broken. It's this open arms, like amazing kind of welcoming. And so when you think about an engaged community today, I don't want you to think about the macro stuff that's really out there and we hear about it every day in the news, and that stuff's not unimportant. I'm not saying that, but I want you to think about the micro, the people around you. I want you to ask yourself right now, who's the one person that needs something that I can help them with today? Who's that one person? And then before you text them or before you reach out to them, what I want you to do is I want you to pray for them right now as we finish. I want you to pray for them. I want you to pray for God's wisdom in your life as you open up your arms to welcome them into your life as you meet the needs that they have. God bless you. Have a great week. We'll see you this weekend.